Got a green light?
All right.
There we go.
We good?
We're good.
Okay. So yeah, as I was saying earlier, it's been quite a year since I was here. I mean, all of this is flashing through my mind as I'm sitting here thinking of it was February when I was here. Usually that's my annual visit, and how many things have happened. And I was just speaking to a friend the other day, and I said, you know, it's been a tough year with the pandemic, with politics, with religious differences that come out because of politics, and yada, yada, yada. And we all need to give each other some grace. We just need to give each other grace. I need to give myself grace, and we need to give each other's grace. And when we do that, when we give ourselves grace and cut some slack, we can cut grace and give slack to others as well. Amen? Yeah. Just the fact that you're here today says to me the importance of your faith life, that you want to be here, you want to be in community. And that's been so missing from our lives this last year. Couldn't even go to a Packer game. Their Lambeau Field was empty up till the end. Then they had, during the playoffs, they allowed a certain number in. So, boy, that was a weird year. But, you know, Pastor was mentioning this Elder Mill article. You know, what a blessing they have been to me. Lutheran Women's Missionary League is who started me in prison ministry. It was a grant through them. So all of these years later, 30, I'm going on 36 in the joint, 38 in ministry, that is why they called in August to talk about doing a feature, and that was a gift too, because it gave me an opportunity to lift up the ministry in this church and talk about what we're doing here in Northern Illinois. The current situation at Stateville is this. Staff and inmates and the entire Illinois Department of Corrections is soon to receive the vaccine. The Tribune last week had a feature article on this, talked about Stateville. It starts tomorrow. The vaccinations in our prison system start tomorrow. There is still no timetable to reopen the facility to families and the community, because people like myself, chaplains, came in with the families. So that gatehouse is still not open. I haven't heard of the plan to reopen. I would imagine sometime this year after everybody has been vaccinated. I could conceivably see being back in prison by the fall, but we'll see. That's to be determined. To date, 90 prisoners have died in the entire Illinois Department of Corrections. That's just the state. That's not county jail numbers. That's not federal numbers. So there's that's a good-sized number. Stateville took the hardest hit. In my first newsletter this summer, I talked about that. They had 13 deaths. One was a previous student of mine, 44 years old. Another was a current student of mine before we were locked out in March, who still has health issues. He recovered. He was one of the first ventilated. He has recovered, but he is permanently now in the infirmary at Stateville with health issues. Two more previous students of mine had it there that I know of. They are in recovery as well. So just like nursing homes have been hard hit, so were prisons. There is no way to socially isolate in a prison setting. There's just not distance. You're crammed in a cell with another individual, and you're crammed into cell houses, so there is no way to really do that. And just like nursing homes, a lot of the residents that I dealt with over the years had underlying health issues. So add that into the quotient, and you know, it was a perfect storm. The classes that I've been allowed to teach and talk about God making a way, I really thought once in the middle of March when they closed down to the community, I thought, well, that's it. Sat there and waited out a couple months, and I didn't hear anything. And finally in May, I heard from the prison. They contacted me and they said, you and your program have been allowed to continue. There were only a handful of programs allowed, and we were one of them. So God made a way. Right then and there, I said, wow, okay, Lord, here's my mandate, you're giving it to me, I got to make this work. So I was given a staff person. It was the assistant warden of the facility that gave me permission, but then a staff person had to step up to the plate and say, we will help her on our end make this happen. In a facility with 1,600 individuals on that one side, 1,600 on the other, I'm behind in the max section. I had to have someone, when I mailed in these assignments, get them to the cell houses, then pick them up again, get them back to me, and the cycle continued every week. We would do this. So this, bless her heart, she's an angel, Laura continues to do it to this day and make sure that it happens. We are in contact through emails, again, through the U.S. Postal Mail. Never have I thanked God more for the U.S. Postal Mail. And being allowed and, to keep this going. When things come up, like I need more students, some have transferred now. They weren't transferring for a long time, now they are. She has been gracious enough to vet students for me, something I can't do. I would go to the cell houses and do that myself. She is now doing that, and she's doing a darn good job across the board with everything. But students are essential, and she has continued to find people who really need this program. She knows about this program. We had worked together in the education department where I taught, and she has just been a godsend. So we have much to be grateful for. Just when you think things are really bleak and dire, and I thought, this is it, it's over, it's finally done, I've had a good run, and then it continued. So that is God, always working things out. And he has in your life too over this last year. I'm sure when you look back and you think that door is closed, another one opened. And that's for all of us, to pay attention to that and be aware of people that you normally wouldn't think about, but who really needed you this last year, whether it was a phone call, email, checking in, whatever. So there's an upside to this pandemic. We've really come to see and put Christian love in action. We've had to, because we've had to make community happen when it wasn't happening. So the classes, in addition to the classes that I'm still doing at Stateville through the mail, I do mailings. I decided early on I could at least do that as well. And that started before the classes did in May. I had students that I can't write my guys at Stateville. I can only do this sanctioned class. But I can write other facilities where previous students had transferred, and those I've ministered to over the last 3 decades are still there. So I decided to put a list together and get them sermons, devotionals, materials, anything that would keep them focused and positive, because for them, again, think of the isolation you and I have felt. Triple that for someone in prison. No more family visits, no more programs, and no nothing. So, if there ever was a time for the church to reach out and get to these individuals, it's been this past year. They needed that. They needed that meat, something to focus on, something to look at, and really incorporate into their daily diet, their spiritual diet. So the class, back to the class, what I did was, the foundation is always the House of Healing curriculum. When I've been here other years, I've talked about how it involves components of restorative justice, God's forgiveness, owning what you've done, making amends to those whom you've harmed, but doing it in light of a God who loves you. Again, the journey of Lent has started. That's what we're all doing, right? We're owning our stuff at the foot of the cross and understanding who we are and who God is. And that's what I've tried to do in the prisons all of these years, is really help them comprehend the love of Christ is huge. And there is no one that is beyond the reach of God. That is the undergirding message. Then what I did was layer that class. So that was the foundational curriculum. And I added other books throughout the years. Many other curriculums were added to that. The one that we were in the middle of when all of this happened, shut down, was one that really resonated with the men. It was called Nonviolent Communication. It was all about speaking your truth, living your truth, and doing it non-violently. The book is relevant because, again, this past year has been a raucous one in terms of politics. People get mean, and it hasn't been an easy time. So when all of this was going on before we were shut down, we talked a lot about political rhetoric, religious rhetoric, how violent it can become, how opinions can hurt, and not everyone wants to hear your opinion. It's okay not to speak it sometimes. But if you do, how do you do it in a constructive, loving way? How do you do it with respecting the space of the other person, that they may not agree? These guys really took to this message, because when you talk about the streets and you talk about violence and living violently and different value systems, you're talking about guns and life and death situations. The rhetoric can get so heated that people die. So this book sounds so innocuous, nonviolent communication, right? Oh, that's a no-brainer. No, not really. This was a big one for the guys. And I loved teaching this class because they really were challenged by it. We had role plays. We had assignments where they had to really speak their truth, but do it in a way that is respectful and loving. And again, firm but kind. Live your truth. Who has God called you to be? Finding that out, your identity. What does it look like? Don't be ashamed of who you are. Don't be ashamed that you're in prison and done time. Do something with it. Make it constructive. Learn from it. And then teach others who are coming behind you. The young guy on the block, or the kid that just came into the cell house, who's young and is looking to you to help mentor them and set a better path. So, yeah, violent talk can lead to violence, and talking about with these guys demonstrating tolerance and inclusivity rather than, you don't agree with me, exclusivity. And we do that in our church. You know, you don't look like us, you don't talk like us, you don't sing our hymns, you don't whatever. We do it too, to each other. So from that group graduated from nonviolent communication in October. I actually had a graduation through the mail. They all got certificates. They did phenomenal work. The joy of every week was reading through their assignments. I had 15 guys in the prison when I was going in. I've had anywhere from 13 to 15 still, and sometimes a few more, and then a few less, because it depends on if they're starting to transfer in and out again now too, so it's fluctuating a little bit more. But loved reading their assignments, and I have pulled out some of their words for you. I'll share with you in a little bit. So I added the book that once we graduated in October, I added the next one right at the end of October, The Spirituality of Imperfection. Really piqued my interest, and I thought, you know, that's speaking to all of us, right? None of us is perfect. We're all dealing with our demons, battling our, whether it's addictions or judgmental attitudes or lack of love, whatever it is. The essence of the book is that God is always present and uses our fault lines, our sin, our dysfunction, to enable us to know Him better. That He uses the very thing that might have brought someone to incarceration to help that individual know His grace and His love and forgiveness better. We apply it to our own lives as well. At the times our lives are messiest, at the times that our lives are down and out and the worst thing we've ever done, and whatever that is, we all know, we all have it, we all have a closet. That's when God reaches us the best. So this really resonated again with the men. We're still involved with it. We're on just finishing up 4, and I think we skipped 5. We're going on to chapter 6, but they're getting into this. They're really understanding it. And it is a way to present God that I think all of us can embrace. That God meets us in our weakness and in our sin, in our crud. And it's when we become humble and truthful with ourselves. And we're not all this and we're not all that. We're broken people. Broken people. That is where He can love us the most and love us the best. And the other thing that, again, this book is really big on is God's love for all people, all stripes, all colors, all backgrounds. This is, again, a really resonant message in this day and age, to love people different from ourselves. I have very much missed our class discussions. The person-to-person interactions is missing. Being able to eyeball someone, being able to hear what happened to them that week. Those conversations, obviously, in class, in the cell houses, is missing. We've all had to make it work, but that has probably been my biggest challenge with ministry. So what has been so good for me to hear are their words and their assignments, because I get to see who they are as they answer these questions, and I really dig down deep when they do their assignments. So they've grown. I started easy with like 4 questions that are really reflective, and I now it is almost 10. It's 3 pages long because I wanted to start slow, because you don't have that class interaction where you gain their trust. You have to do it through the mail. But it's amazing. It's working. I every week added a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. I'm asking them to be very vulnerable. And for some of them, I think it has been easier maybe to use pen and paper than be in person. So again, assignments are giving me a window to their soul and helping me to really minister to them when I respond to their assignments. When this whole thing started, and we were all caught so off guard, near me, I'm 8 miles from the prison, and near me is a a prairie path across the street from the prison. It's kind of my prison prairie path, because when this all began, walking was such a solace for me. It was the one thing you could do without a mask, get the dogs out, get out, and walk. And there is Stateville way across the street, because this prairie path runs, there's 2 actually that connect, they're huge, and there's the joint. And so the one is kind of far away and the other is close, but I could see the quarter house units where all my guys lived. And I'm like, that was my solace. I looked forward to that every day. I would go to that path, and I would walk that path with my dogs, and I would pray for each guy by name. In the hospital, in the cell houses, the guys that I had known now, the inmates I'd worked with in years past, and I would just pray, 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 walking that path. And it was a way for me to get through it. And especially when I heard that some of them had gotten very sick, then I was really lifting them up and just praying God's blessings on that place. Cover that place. Just be there and let them know you're real, you're there. And this was before they said I could do the class. So all of a sudden in May then, March, April, it was almost the end of May, I'm given permission, and I'm able to do that. So at any rate, I think that was one thing that really helped me get through this. And one way you always know you're living your truth, because when you feel so passionate and called to something, God is going to always have it in your view. And I had it literally in my view. It's in my backyard. And I prayed for staff, and I prayed for, the wardens on down, and the officers that I had known over the years that helped me so much to do this work. And all the ones I didn't know. And then I just started praying, bless all the ones I don't know. And all the new ones that have come along. And you know them, I don't know them, you know them by name, down to the last hair on their head. Bless, bless, bless. God makes a way. So when I look back over this last year, and as I was putting this together, I thought 4 things really come to my mind. They are, God is faithful. God is present. God is for all people. And God is deliberate. We have a God who is intentional. He doesn't miss a beat. We miss it, and then we kind of look back and say, oh, that's what you were trying to tell me to do, right? Oh, that's why I eventually moved out there and so close to the prison because I was going to be there all these years. I didn't always live there. So think back on this last year to when God has been faithful to you, present to you, reminded you that he's for all people, we're all in this together, and that he is deliberate. He opens the doors when you think they're locked. As Eliot said, there's a key. There's always a key. When I consider what might not have happened this past year, I'm amazed. God's faithfulness came through and again and again and again. He said, no, I want you to continue. The ministry needs to keep happening, and now more than ever, keep going, Lori, keep up. Each week that I did mailings, and I still do weekly mailings to these other facilities, sending them anything I can get my hands on. I'm always scouring books and materials and sending them on, and I've gotten great feedback from those guys about how this has helped them focus and make it through another day. Then you know you're on the right track. So it's been, devotionals, sermons, messages, prayers, poems, poetry, and then challenging them with questions as well, to journal, write what you're going through, what's happening to you. Psalm 46:11 comes to mind, that verse. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Always. I see God's presence through the words of the students in their assignments. When a student says, this class has helped me become the person I am today, peaceful, more open-minded, someone who stands in my truth, I see God's hand working in this man's heart. Psalm 46, verse 1 says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help. Present. God has and is present to each of us and to these men. God is for all people. The designated staff person who has helped me so far has found students for my class. She's gone above and beyond for me. I rely on her. She knows I couldn't do this without her. God bless her. God put someone there to be able to continue this work. And this is what we all need to do. Who needs this right now? Who's on the fringe? People that no one else wants to look at, people we ignore, people we don't like to see. Who's on the fringe of society that we can reach out to and help and make a difference? Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still and know I am God. I am God for everybody. And lastly, God is deliberate. Boy, have I seen that this last year. God will make it happen if we stay true to the call, if we listen to the call he's given us. He is deliberate. He will open doors. He will empower us to do the work that he's called us to do. He's opened doors for you this whole last year and will continue to in the months ahead. Listen, be aware, pay attention. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth be moved or there be a pandemic. In the words of the men, Jesus says, thank you so much for reminding me that I am human, for giving me clarity and having my back. You are a beacon of hope, the angel on my left shoulder. I don't know why I'm on the left and not the right, but yeah, he's left-handed. And that comes from someone who's was in a class of mine at Stateville and is now at another facility, and from a devotional that he had read. Mike says, compassion and grace are not something I feel I deserve, but I'm grateful I have it. Alan, thank you for the weekly coursework and devotional material. Keep it coming. Diaz, this class has helped me so much to become the person I am today, peaceful, open-minded, and someone who stands in my truth. Scott, this is a good one. Spirituality and growing close to God go hand in hand, like a boxer and a good trainer. I like that analogy. God knew that I needed a Savior, Jesus. And he knew that my imperfections would lead me to falling on my face and then crying out to him. And that really comes from that book, Spirituality of Imperfection. He really, he's picking up on the whole theme there. Another assignment read, I had them answer the question, where have I been, where am I now, where am I going? And this individual said, where have I been? Poverty, darkness, rage, struggle, confusion. Where am I now? Penitentiary, yielding, on my face, convicted, truth. Where am I going? Paradise. Being better tomorrow than I am today. Some humility there. And the last one. The question was, how does God come through our wounds? In our worst troubles, trials, imperfections, and struggles, that's when God's at his best. When all hell breaks loose and there's nobody else to run to, nowhere to go, God shows up and changes our circumstances. Our wounds reveal his healing. Lewis. How's that for some insight? Yeah, they're doing tremendous work. I was sent this poem by Dennis, who wrote this recently, and I'll end with this piece of poetry. Have you ever seen a rainbow? If you have, you already know. For those of you who haven't, it's my job to tell you so. When you see a rainbow, it's like God giving you a kiss, and no matter what's going on, letting you know, I got this. God doesn't capture the moment. He simply creates the moment that allows us to love and be loved. It's hard to show our scars, but past the clouds are always the stars. So many different shades and colors in a rainbow. All together as one, this is how you know we're meant to be in community. That reflects God's light. No matter how you look, it shouldn't divide. It should only unite. Some say, tell us more. We'd love to know. All I can say is, look for the rainbow. Thank you.
Lori, who's Dennis?
What's that?
Who is Dennis? Is he, do you know
the
him?
brother of ST.
Okay.
William.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Can you believe what God's doing?
And he's a student.
And
A
that's what I'm saying, he's a
former
student.
student, but he's
That's
at
what I was
another
gonna ask, if he
facility
was a
now. That's
student.
how I got the poem.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay.
Yeah, can you believe what God's doing through Lori? And I'm sure, Lori, there's times when you just look back and say, wow, I can't believe what God's done through what I put in.
I'm actually like standing here now. I put this together, for the 31st of January, and I'm like, wow, God has really done a lot this last year.
Awesome?
I am kind of like amazed. Yep. And I was going to leave time for questions and answers. We had talked about that, but it's up to you if you want to do that or not. Or if they have any.
Let's have them grab you afterwards, okay?
That works for me.
We can do that as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I say that because I want to encourage us, that God works through every single one of us too. In places that's where we're at. Lori brought that in so well in your message, and to look for that and look for the opportunities God's placing before us to be his hands and his feet in the community and continue to work. And obviously your support of Lori keeps her going at the prison there too, and you be praying about that as well. Okay?